Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another interesting episode of the Candid Talk here on Herman Manyora's YouTube channel. And of course, as usual, my name is Evan Sokinyi. I'm joined by the one and only, the most sought after political analyst and commentator, the first of his name, Herman Manyora. Prof, how are you?
Good.
Welcome to the
Yes,
show.
thank you.
I can see it's sunny.
Yes.
Prof, there is something that actually disturbs me, man. What is wrong with your Western people?
Why?
Or is it their nature to be behaving that way? Why is it that you get to help somebody or some widow or some sort of somebody down there, you help this person construct a house or a home, and then you write there constructed by if it is Fernandez Barras. I saw that, by the way, on Twitter at the time when it was written. Like, what does it really...
Is it a Western problem or is it a Kenyan problem?
I've seen that. I've seen that. I haven't seen it anywhere else. The other time,
it is all over the country.
The other time I saw it with Beatrice in Yangala. Now it's with the governor.
No,
why would you help somebody and then have a rubber stamp written there?
You have limited data upon which you are making a very serious conclusion. In this country, a politician cannot give you anything unless there's a camera there to record what he's giving.
So you sure it's happening throughout the country?
Yeah, it's a
but why
it's a national problem. Leaders give only when there is a camera. And where there are people to clap.
But why would you?
That's why you see very useless things donated by so. All of us they are dotting the entire country. Donated by so and so, CDF these. Now you have very small little things, and the launching of including latrines. It's a Kenyan problem. It's not a Western Kenyan problem.
But at least, okay, if it's about the schools, perhaps some sort of project, at least that is understandable. But how would you construct a widow house and you write down the feasible?
I've seen it in central Kenya.
They do that there?
Yeah.
And write it?
No, the writing
a kind donation by the governor, and it's somebody's house, even if. Sure.
My friend, you walk, I can't blame you. You're a young man, you don't know this country. You walk all over the country and you see water tanks for car wash donated by so and so. Somebody has bought a water tank of 20,000 and donated for a car wash. Women self-help. They are all over the country. It's like, what you should be telling me, what can we do to get rid of this stupidity? Yeah. It's not a Western Kenya thing. It's a national problem. Yeah. But because now, we have decided that the only way to identify who can be a leader is through the so-called Harambee and development conscious things.
If you decided to give, like, for instance, if today you decided to help some young people down there, perhaps it's a group of you, decided to open them, perhaps a car wash or something of the sort, well and good. If you want yourself to be associated with that, I have no problem with that. But now, a widow's house.
It's the same. There's no difference. Whether it's a widow's house or... But I'm seeing this thing on social media all the time. Which social media do you
No, not tell me. Is it right?
I've seen many times, people are building houses for villagers and it's all over social media.
Is it
and
right?
They are there in Kinyasas, wanatengeneza nyumba.
Should we go that direction? Is it
no,
right?
I'm saying that's not correct. Yeah. The country must have ways of dealing with vulnerable groups, persons, and institutions. We should direct the resources, national resources, to work for us where it must work for us. Even it includes removing the shame of a widow staying in a house that is so bad, that is open to all the weather problems like rain. That's a national shame. So there should be resources set aside for that. Just like I do not buy into this stupidity MPs are saying that because they are contributing to the building of schools and bursaries, CDF must come back. And this government must allocate money for those things.
And that is actually
not through MPs.
That is actually what's driving us to our conversation today, Prof. The other time we had a conversation here with you and we were talking about the impacts of the High Court's, or rather the Supreme Court's decision to declare CDF actually unconstitutional, therefore rendering it null and void. And we saw the kind of reaction that came from the members of parliament and everybody there. Even the president himself came out and said that, not to worry, this program will actually come back. You stated here that if at all they try to reintroduce CDF and perhaps entrench it into the constitution, then you'd actually lead a mass demonstration outside there.
Yeah.
But now that is where we are as a country. Because as we talk, there's a bill that has already been tabled in the National Assembly They have actually decided to bring, of course, we are now getting it not just Constituency Development Fund, but then the National Government Constituency Development Fund, the so-called GAF. We also have what we call the Senate Oversight. That is basically talking about this bill that was introduced, and I'm very sure that you are aware of it. Introduced by 2 members of parliament to entrench that into the constitution, so that they want to avoid a situation whereby somebody will run to the court and then the court will say definitely this is not within our within the constitution. So we have that the Senate Oversight Fund that is there, the NGAF, and of course the NGCDF that we're talking about. Prof, what does this, is it right for our leaders to behave this way? In fact, what do you think is perhaps the impact of making these things now constitutional, or rather entrenching them into the constitution?
You know, I've been very clear.
Definitely.
And I've said this. We are a poor, dirty third world country. People in this country are still dying from diseases which stopped killing people 200-300 years ago. We are still having the shame of people dying of hunger and being paraded on international media. People eating wild roots and even dogs. The shame of children going to things that you have a problem calling schools. The shame of over 80% of people in our cities, like in Nairobi, our towns and cities, living in things you can't even call slums. Because a slum is Dandora, Umoja. Those are slums. Kawangware, Kibera, those are not slums. Those are other things. And that's where 80% of our people live. So we are poor, dirty third world country. We die with joy when we get an opportunity to go to a foreign country. People are willing to bribe to get a visa to go to America. Africans are dying crossing the Mediterranean to be legal immigrants in Europe. They die in their thousands every year, or hundreds. Going to those countries which people have made livable and that are working. So the choice is very clear for the people of this country, sadly through their leaders. We either choose to remain a poor, dirty third world country or move into the League of Nations so that our people can live like human beings. So that when you come back, if you have disappeared from Kenya today, come back after 10 years, the lowest housing estate will be Buruburu. It can be done. Yes, it can be done. We can move in that direction or remain a poor, dirty third world country. But in order to move in that direction, we have to stop being stupid and doing things which even a small 5-year kid can see is just stupidity. You cannot talk of Parliament playing the oversight role. Parliament enables government to raise funds. It is them who allows government to raise funds, including taxes. Parliament must allow government to raise funds. Then, when Parliament is using the same funds, not Parliament, government, the executive, Parliament oversights the use of those funds. You cannot, by any stretch of imagination, make Parliament part and parcel of the spending of the same money. How will they oversight themselves? It's cheap. It's simple. The courts have said as much. So if you go around trying to cut corners, for who are you cutting corners? You are making the world see you just for who you are. We are just useless people. So these people in Parliament, these are just useless fellows. No, the greed to control some little money, to walk around with checks and flash around some little money, is making them present Kenyans as very useless people to the international community. It's a no-brainer. It's even if you took it to primary school debate, they will tell you it's not possible. Parliament oversights the executive. Parliament cannot join the executive in spending the same money. And that's what the courts are telling them. So whichever way you try to go, it's like trying to deceive yourself. Unajua, ni kama kutaka kujidanganya wewe mwenyewe. Unaweka pesa hapo, unaiba kidogo, unaweka pande hii. Umeiba hii. You are just stupid. So what I'm trying to say is this. The choice for us as people is very clear. If we are happy that millions of Kenyans are going to bed hungry, if we are happy that millions of young people have no jobs, if we are happy that millions of people live like animals in this country, if we are happy that millions of people cannot access healthcare and education, if we are happy that thousands upon thousands of people are dying because they cannot access simple healthcare, if we are happy with all these bad things going on, then let us do what our MPs are doing. Let them continue doing. Let them pass that law. It's okay, let them pass it. Let them give themselves, not even the amount they were giving themselves, 30 billion. Let them give themselves 200 billion. It's okay, let them take it.
And of course,
let Parliament pass a law that gives them 200 billion in CDF.
And of course, what you
not 30 billion. I want them to get 250 billion.
And of course, that's not
because,
just...
you know, I'm feeling so bad. Because we don't seem to see that this country is in shit. This country is in a hole. We are courting a revolution. For heaven's sake, I tell leaders in this country, this is a revolution they are staring into the eyes. And they are the ones who live in these big estates. This is a revolution they are inviting. Because even why we put SRC, salaries and whatever commission, in the constitution, was to tame the greed of leaders in Parliament. It was Parliament Kenyans wanted to tame in terms of greed. So when you do this CDF thing, you are irritating Kenyans. Let them pass laws that will say certain amounts of money that go to counties will only be passing the governor's office. Because money is either devolved or remains with the national government. Hapa katikati pesa gani ingine unaweka hii? Hakuna, there's no room for any other money. So they say, for the devolved units, the money that goes to the counties, a certain amount of money, a certain percentage, will be for specific items. It will only pass the governor's office because that's the only way it can, the only route. So we say there will be 10% of national revenue that goes to bursaries, if we are still having this education that is paid for. Better still, education should be free. Whatever the CDF money does, building schools, doing what, that money should roll down from the treasury to the governor's office, via the governor's office, to certain specific items, like if it is building of classroom. Then the work of the MP will be to oversight. First, to ensure the governor does not touch that money, because it's not his money. It's not part of the money he's given. It passes there because legally, that's the only way you can pass devolved money. And number two, to oversight government, governors, so that it is doing that for which it was intended. You see, if part of that money is to construct village dips, village wells, you make sure they are constructed, and with the amounts of money that is commensurate with the work. If it is to do feeder small roads, village roads, and village culverts and small bridges, you make sure the governor does not take that money to something else. That's your work as an MP. But mwataka pesa mweka kwa mfuko.
Well, no, Prof. Actually, you've said, of course, I've heard you mention a rather sarcastic statement there, that let them increase.
Let them get 250 billion.
But actually, that is already a proposal,
yes.
Because initially they were being given 2.5%.
Yes, now they want.
But now they want to raise it to 5%.
No, 5 is too late. 10%. Let the MPs get 10%.
No, Prof. We are here dealing with a president actually who swore to protect the constitution. But the same president actually says that if you look at some of these things that he wants to bring on board, of course, with that bill tabled there so that these kind of funds can be entrenched into the constitution, we see the president saying here that CDF and all those kinds of funds actually give us value for money, and that is why they should actually be introduced, because it's like without them, then the MPs do not have a work at all.
Is that their work?
Do you buy
MPs have their work very clearly. The work of the MP is number one, representation. Number two, legislation. Number two is oversight. MP hana kazi ingine kama is not a labor officer to give people jobs. He's not a fund manager to manage CDF. He's not a finance officer. He's not in charge of funerals and weddings. No. To legislate is number one. If you ask some MPs whether they have ever spoken in parliament even one day, they should not be earning. Yeah. In fact, there should be the minimum contribution in parliament for you to continue being in parliament. That's your work. Your work is not what they are saying.
Some people are saying actually, yes, that's what I always hear. Yes, he's not mouth. He doesn't talk too much. But then when you look at his track record,
that's not his work.
He does a lot of work down there.
Which work? That's not his work.
Actually,
that's not the work of
bringing development back to the
Which
people.
Development? That's not the MPs. The MPs must make laws and ensure there are policies in place that will make those things work. If you are going to build classrooms and we clap for you, no. Ensure the laws of the land and the policies in place. Obligate government to ensure that all schools in this country meet a certain minimum threshold in terms of infrastructure development. That's what MPs should do. They should say, in the next budget and the next and the next, for the next 5 budget cycles. For the next cycles, 5 of them, we will ensure the minimum primary school in this country will be like Nairobi primary school. The lowest. That there's no school in this country in the next 10 years that will be below Nairobi primary school in terms of standards. That is the work of the MP. And to push government into raising money towards that. Not to be given some little money to go and buy mabati kumi hapa, classroom moja. That is, we shall never even finish.
A number of MPs and a number of members of parliament, perhaps who actually watch our channel here, because definitely we're watched by a number of people, would perhaps be concerned as why do you vehemently oppose this issue of CDF?
I only oppose things that are stupid, that don't make sense. I love this country, and I look at stupid policies like CDF, and I can't support that. Because, you see, finally, instead of an MP doing what he's supposed to do, they end up doing what they are not supposed to do, at the cost of what they are supposed to do. So, in terms of legislation, this country is way behind. Do you know, if you open the statutes of this country, you run away? There are laws that were put in place in 1905, 1908, 1920, that targeted the native, Mwafrika. Even when you hear drinking after hours, watu wakishikwa, those laws, ordinances were put in place to make sure the native does not take time on Muratina and the Busa and the Changa. Afanye kazi kwa shamba ya mzungu. That's why certain taxes were imposed on the people, so that they may work to raise the taxes to pay. But the mzungu didn't want the taxes. They wanted the workers on the farm. So that the working, drinking hours and what have you, a lot of these laws are in place, were put there to put the native in check. You know?
Yes, I
you know,
understand.
even the word Mau Mau was, I don't know what I can tell you, my friend. Why can't our parliament say we shall not come to this parliament again? We are going home. But before we come back, government must show us the grave of dead and Kimathi.
No, Prof, as we wind up this conversation, are you trying to say that all these kind of development projects, or the so-we-call development projects that are purported to be done by the members of parliament,
those are cheap
we
things.
can achieve them as a country without entrenching?
Yes, we don't need to give MPs some 500,000 shillings, 200,000 shillings to do it. No, we don't need to give an MP 100 million to do it. We can do it. I have told you, we can look and project in the next 50 years. The population demography, in terms of children. How many children are we likely to have in schools in the next 5, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 years? What kind of infrastructure do we need for the children? Of what standards? Unaona? When voting is going on and we are focusing, the cameras are on the queues, do you look at the schools that we call schools? That 70-80% of the children in this country going to school walk without shoes in the 21st century. That children in this country go to school without hope of anything called lunch, and we expect them to learn. And some stupid man in parliament tells me he wants to be given money for CDF. They should be looking at the future of these children. What do we put in place to ensure children have proper learning environment? There's the infrastructure. Because MPs don't do that, because they concentrate on CDF, they don't know billions of shillings in the budget is stolen by the people who steal this money. But if they are pursuing good life for Kenyans, including good classroom for our children, they will know where the money is in the budget. And they will insist, toa hii kwa damu, hii damu ni ukora. An MP will not know a dam of 20 billion ni ukora. No dam should cost 20 billion shillings. Toa hiyo ukora hapo, funga hiyo. Toa hiyo pesa kwa damu sababu unataka uende ukule. Hiyo 20 billion, by the way, do you know, without breaking a sweat, do you know, this country can build an Alliance High School, Alliance Girls and Alliance Boys in every constituency. Every constituency in this country can have a school like Alliance High School, boys and girls. Every constituency. Do you know this country can afford Kenyatta National Hospital in every county within 5 years? So instead of MPs looking at the budget in terms of looking at where money is hidden to be stolen, they want to give themselves some 30 billion. Watch out, 500 billion. Let them take it. And then they will tell me if I will be there. If I will have gone, they should come and visit my grave and say, you saw this thing. They are courting a revolution and it's coming.
So does it mean therefore that you only view CDF as just a kind of a leeway to corruption?
It symbolizes what is wrong with this country, what is wrong with our leadership. Yeah. It is not the problem, it is a symbol of what is our problem, that we do not have a leadership that can focus on national problems.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it from Professor Herman Manyora giving his views on some of these issues that are actually affecting our country, and of course CDF being one of them. And we've seen a number of MPs are actually accused of embezzling some of these funds. Well, let us wait and see whether they will be actually entrenched into the constitution and what are some of the effects of doing such kind of things in this country. Till we have this conversation again, have yourself a very lovely day. My name is Evans Okinyi.
Thank you, Evans.